Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to create Studio Ghibli inspired artwork, daytime and night version. I like making tiny art, but you could of course have it on a larger scale. Even though I am totally a gouache girl, using acrylic is perfectly fine. I've gone ahead and applied the washi tape to prevent the paint from smearing the pages before. So for my sky, I'm really just using ultramarine and primary blue mixed together. So we have a lovely bright blue and I'm just applying it at the top. Typically when I'm applying my base layer, I don't know why, I just like using a flat brush. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a light blue by mixing the primary blue with the white. And starting from the base, I'm just going to work side to side, eventually merging the two colors together. Repeating the same process, taking that light blue, this time I'm starting from the bottom of my page and I work my way up so everything is blended seamlessly. So this is my favorite way to draw clouds and it's so easy. You want to take a round brush. I prefer synthetic bristles and taking not white but a very light blue. You want to press your brush into the page, sort of turning it and moving it across the paper so we have a lovely organic fluffy cloud. When I think of Studio Ghibli's clouds, I think of those big giant clouds, so that is what we are doing today. So the clouds still look a bit transparent for me, so I'm going to go ahead and apply more paint and we're going to do it again just to really build up that opacity. The way you press your brush into the paper and with the blue background underneath, it sort of creates different tones underneath it, making it look more three-dimensional. So now I'm just going to bring the cloud a little bit lower to the bottom of the page. I do like how the cloud looks, but I just wanted to look a little bit more irregular, so I'm just going to define some edges so it looks fluffier. So now to make the cloud appear more three-dimensional, I'm taking the white and I'm just applying it on the left side of my cloud. So this is where the sun is going to hit. So the top edge of the highlighted parts are meant to be sharp, whereas the bottom parts are meant to be softer, blended towards the rest of the cloud. You'll see me blend it out later, but for now I'm just sort of deciding where the highlights are in the cloud. With a clean brush with just a little bit of water, you can see now I start blending the highlights into the rest of the cloud. And here I'm just adding areas of the cloud where there's a bit more shadow, so we're using more of a darker blue color. Same thing that I did before, with a clean brush, go ahead and blend it. Let's play pretend, make me perfect. Alright, so for now I'm just going to take that base light blue color and just bring it to the lower part of the page. We will come back to the clouds, but for now let's work on the foreground. So now to make a nice dark green color, I'm mixing the ultramarine with my sap green. And very roughly I'm just blocking out the field. Now to make my grassy field really come to life, it needs to look less smooth. So taking my brush, I'm just making little strokes of different pressure and different lengths. And this just helps to make it look more organic, give an impression of blades of grass. So I'm not sure what this sort of plant is. Maybe it's just a type of weed, but it's nice to have a bit of variation in our field. And I absolutely love painting these. All I do is create a thin stalk and just make tiny little leaves along the side. Just make sure that they're quite random and not too uniform. Now with a very dark green color that's almost blue, we're adding more sap green. So now I'm just making little strokes here and there, mimicking grass. bit of variety, I'm also pressing my brush into the paper just to create the impression of little leaves. I know at the moment it looks pretty dark, but trust the process. So now I'm going to go ahead and lighten that color even more. Now this time I'm going to add yellow into my mixture. I'm going to repeat those same steps, although this time I thought I'll add more of that sort of like weed variation into my field. The flowers is always going to be my favorite part, so you can mix any color you like. I'm just making a violet color by mixing some red and blue together. You don't have to overthink your flowers. Just take a small detail brush and just make little dashes for the petals for the flowers. Now we will go back to finishing the flowers, but for now let's work on the clouds. I'm going to go ahead and take the tape off for now. So those marks on the borders are actually made from the paintings before. But we'll fix that later. For now, taking a small detail brush, I'm just going back to the highlights, just making those lovely crisp edges. And then of course, with a watered down brush, go ahead and soften the highlights. For the middle of the flowers, I use an orangey color, but I'm just going to cast a shadow on them by taking a cadmium red and just applying it near the base, just so it pops and makes it look more 3D. So at this point, I'm just adding bits and bobs to the painting where I think it's necessary, like maybe some flowers or softening out some of the highlights. And we are pretty much done. So easy, one of my favorite things to paint. So let's do an evening version, demonstrating the same technique pretty much. So here I've got ultramarine and cadmium red, and I'm mixing it together to create my night sky color. So I've gone ahead and marked the base shape for my clouds and actually used a very light pink, but over the blue night sky it appears kind of violety, which is pretty. So now I'm going to go ahead and use a stiffer bristle brush and dipping it into white paint with a little bit of water in it. Make sure you practice first just to make sure the spray is perfect. I'm going to go ahead and create some stars. And now I'm going to paint in my moon. So now I just add in my highlights. So just think about where the moon is going to illuminate. And then of course we have areas of shadows. So I'm just going back and forth applying more highlight and just making sure everything is blended nicely. I try not to hyper focus when I'm working on my paintings, so we will come back to the clouds, but for now let's work on our foreground. With a very dark color, using mostly ultramarine with a hint of red, I'm just marking out the grassy field very roughly. Go ahead and define those edges, just making it like super organic. So for this one here, I'm going to make it like a little bit more chaotic. Since the base color is actually quite light, I'm going to go ahead and apply some strokes of the darker color. Okay, so now we can start creating the lighter layers by mixing a bit of green to our dark color and repeating the same steps. But instead of using yellow to lightening up even more, I'm going to use a tiny little bit of white because it is nighttime, so it's going to be a lot more cooler. So here I'm just going back to my clouds with a tiny little brush and just finding areas to define. And mixing the red with the blue and making a nice violet color and just adding the flowers. It's always super satisfying pulling away the washi tape and seeing those crisp borders. Since my art diary is so small, I wasn't going to use borders, but I realized that I kept on staining the pages afterwards, so I ended up using the washi tape for the borders again. And that's it. My Studio Ghibli inspired entries are now complete. I also went ahead and cleaned up my borders a little bit with some white gouache. But I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It's super easy, and as always, if you do recreate it, please do tag me on Instagram. Happy painting!